Xin chào Vietnam, Mabuhay Philippines. Welcome to episode 4 of Startup and Wine. My name is Paul and I'm very, very excited tonight because we are going to talk about something that is so important, if not the most important aspect of running a startup. How do you build your core team? And I am very privileged and excited because our guest today is formerly with LinkedIn in Singapore and also now the founder of one of the hottest employer branding portal in the Philippines and hopefully soon here in Vietnam, Miss Kass Monzon from WorkBean. Miss Kass, hello.
Hello, Paul. Thank you for having me. I hope you're having a good evening.
I already had a couple of glasses before the show. Let's do it Vietnamese way though. So let's say mop, hai, ba, yo. So one more. Mop, hai, ba.
Yo.
Yo. All
Yo.
right. Welcome to Vietnam, Miss Kass.
Thank you for having me virtually.
You know what? I'm already like half Vietnamese, half Filipino. And every time we have an episode here, I always use this mug. This is given to me by the ambassador of the Philippines here in Vietnam. So I heavily promote Philippines here, but at the same time, I heavily promote Vietnam back home in the Philippines. All right.
Love it.
So Ms. Kass, before we begin, I just wanted to make a couple of shout outs to, of course, our sponsor, WisePass. Hello, Mr. Lam and WisePass team. Thank you so much for sponsoring the series. Ms. Kass, just a quick story. This series started out with me and Mr. Lam, the founder of WisePass, just decided to have a live conversation. We used to work together in the first ever group buying website in Vietnam. We have like $3 million in revenue every month in cash 10 years ago. And we started to talk about our experiences, and people liked what they were watching. So we made it into a series, and now we're in episode 4. We are also live on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Thank you so much to LinkedIn for allowing us to broadcast live on your platform. And of course, on Move Up Web, we now allow private live streaming on our web portal. So we can now live stream on Move Up Web. All right. So hello everyone. Thank you so much for not watching Miss Universe. I know Miss Universe Philippines is live now. And joining us live tonight here in Startup and Wine. All right. On our audience, we already have Miss Tao. Hello, Miss Tao. My hair is not pretty. Miss Shello said, ang ganda talaga ni Miss Kass. And I second the motion. It means in English, Miss Kass is really very pretty. My co-founder, Mr. Jamie, is also here.
Jamie.
Live, right? Live with us. And of course, Mr. Lam, the CEO of Wise Pass. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight. And let's get to it. Miss Cass, I have a bit of a vision as an individual. I'm surrounded by a lot of very, very successful and inspiring, powerful people, and you're one of them. I don't think I said this before, but you inspire me a lot. Like a young executive who's really braving the path of entrepreneurship and startup journey. So I'm very honored to have you here, and you empower me. And I know a lot of people out there. First up, Miss Cass, can you tell our audience a little bit about your career journey as a professional?
As a professional, well, I've always wanted to be a consultant in HR. For some reason, since college, a lot of the topics that I was mesmerized about was really about HR, organizational development, and I don't know. At some point, one of my biggest papers in college was about sexual harassment in the workplace. I like to get into the nitty gritty of the issues in the workplace ever since I was in university. So that's sort of when the love for HR started. And as soon as I graduated, I actually joined Mercer. Because I wanted to be with the big guys, work with consultants and all that stuff. So I was an analyst there. I saw the life of a consultant, but I had to quit primarily because that was in 2014, and the topic on like workplace analytics was only just starting to come up, and it wasn't very much popular at that time. It was very expensive. People don't know how workplace analytics works, so we had to close down that line of business at that time, just because we couldn't close customers who understand that. So I said, okay, I don't want to give up on that dream, but I gotta do something else. So I still went on to join the corporate. I joined the sister company of Mercer, which was Marsh, and that's where I discovered I actually have a knack for sales. Maybe because I'm also half Chinese, so
And
sales
you're
is
pretty, and you're eloquent, you're
I think
smart.
that worked out.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's where I met one of the best people in the world, my very first amazing boss, who taught me the ins and outs of sales. And then after that, I still had bigger dreams. I said, I want to explore the bigger world outside of the Philippines. So I up and applied to Cisco's sort of sales associate program. It's really a big program. It's ran all over the world. Only that
Mhm.
they select the top, what, 1 2 people from the country to join the
Mhm.
program. They pay for an entire year's worth of accommodation, of salary,
Wow.
and of learning. And I was like, yes, if you're gonna give me all of these things and you're gonna move me to Singapore, sign me up. And I got into that.
Wow.
Program. So I stayed with Cisco for about 3 years. But then I don't know, something in me just really was still in love with the idea of HR, people, all these things.
Mhm.
So there was an opportunity to join LinkedIn at some point. Very funny
Mhm.
story how I got that job, but maybe we can talk about that later. But
No,
there
let's
was
talk about it. I want to know, how did you get in LinkedIn? You guys, she worked for LinkedIn before she started her startup. I want to know how you get in there. It's LinkedIn, and we're live on their platform right now.
I don't even like I applied there without a resume. I mean, true to its core, right? I applied using LinkedIn, not even LinkedIn. So very funny. I was like hosting a friend's wedding in Singapore. Being that we're Filipinos, people think we love to sing and host and all that stuff. But whatever. He was
Sorry.
one of my very good friends. So I said, yes, I'm gonna host your wedding. I'm gonna MC for you. I'm even gonna sing for you because I don't have any gifts, right? I can give you the gift of my voice. I said. Then I did that, right? I don't know. For some reason, LinkedIn's regional manager was there. She saw me. She's like, "Oh, this person, does she want to move to Singapore and do sales?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
And this is in the Philippines. This is in the Philippines.
No, in Singapore. So I was living in
Oh,
Kuala Lumpur. So during my Cisco time, I moved from Singapore and then to KL. And then
okay.
when I was in KL, I had this itch. I was like, I love KL, but I want to go back to the grind in Singapore. And
Mm-hmm.
that happened. I hosted a friend's wedding. The regional sales manager of LinkedIn was there, and she was like, "Does she want to move to Singapore?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yes." I mean, kismet. So I did that. They interviewed me. It was a very competitive interview process. We had to do like case studies after
Mm,
case studies. But I don't remember giving out a resume. I think they just looked at my
mm,
LinkedIn profile and really assessed me through the whole business case and all that
mm-hmm,
stuff. A few
mm-hmm,
months, maybe 2-3 months after that, I was already packing my bags and living in Singapore again.
mm-hmm. What year
So
was this?
2017, 2018.
All right.
Around
Okay.
that time, if I
Okay.
remember correct.
So you started out with HR and then you moved to sales. And for some reason, there's something about the HR industry that keeps you interested in your career journey, right? What was your role in LinkedIn and how is it like working for LinkedIn Singapore?
My role, they call me a hybrid account manager, if I remember correctly. I handled key accounts. It's funny because it was a lot of pressure for me because
Mm-hmm.
I was the youngest key accounts manager. So,
Oh,
account manager. I was the youngest. I was a Filipino. Tapping into a different culture altogether. Selling into the Singapore market,
mm-hmm,
even Hong Kong. So I was traveling a lot. I mean, that was my dream, right? To travel a
mm-hmm,
lot and get paid to stay in hotels and all that stuff. I got it. I did that. And I love LinkedIn. They have, I mean, you can't complain with the benefits and the perks that
mm-hmm,
they give you. I mean, as a salesperson, if there are any salespeople here, you know how much
mm-hmm,
they reimburse you for the meals that you have with
mm-hmm.
clients and all that stuff. So that was really great.
Mm. And this is really powerful, Miss Castor, to just cut you off there because we discussed this last episode. Like if you're, and that's why this episode is so important if you're trying to build your team, guys, if you're in startup, because LinkedIn is a perfect example on the types of competition you're gonna have out there in the market when it comes to compensation and benefits that you're gonna offer a startup. So in the last episode, we were discussing a little bit about, look, how are you actually gonna attract people? Because, especially if you want the best talent, because all these whales, these giants are just giving it everything, the financial benefits, all other benefits. And we're gonna dig deeper later on how we're actually gonna do that through employer branding, maybe with Workbean and some other tips and tricks. Please go ahead, Miss Cass.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's my story at LinkedIn. I stayed there for about a year. I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
because I was young. Quarter life crisis comes to the young people now. It's
Oh
too early, I
God.
know, but whatever, right? But you're into the role. I
Mm-hmm.
love traveling. I do it as a
Mm-hmm.
job. I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
pretty fun and amazing, but I got really burned out.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it wasn't the right place for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I was going through a lot. It was like one of my darkest times in my
Mm-hmm.
life, right? Yes, we did get all the perks like Google.
Okay, let's answer that question because
Yes,
our fans, sorry, our viewers are actually like very active in the chat group right now. We're gonna try to answer as many questions as possible.
mm,
But yeah, Miss Cass, did you get all the perks like
yes.
Google and
Oh
LinkedIn?
God, our meals were like catered by I think Fairmont Hotel every day, like breakfast, lunch, late
Oh
lunch,
God.
early dinner, and every Friday is like there's champagne. You'll just see champagne hanging out, there, people drinking and all that stuff. It's amazing. I mean, you can't complain, right? But I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I was really at that time in my life where quarter life crisis, the millennial issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had sort of like an identity crisis, and I said, I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like I belong in this place. Maybe it
Mm-hmm.
was something that I imposed upon myself. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it was one of the boldest decisions of my life because I always wanted to be in corporate. because I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in a Filipino Chinese household, we were taught to be
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs. But because I'm
Yep.
a rebel child, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do something
Mm-hmm.
totally different from my family, from my parents. But it brought me back to entrepreneurship. When I started in my life, all I wanted to do
Yeah.
was quit, go home, help out my dad in his business, right? But fate
Mm-hmm.
had other things planned for me. When I went home, I took a little bit of rest, but I decided I can't just work in my dad's business. I gotta do something else. So that's
Mm-hmm.
when I started to play around with the idea of playing to my strengths on what I learned
Mm-hmm.
from Mercer to Marsh to
Mm-hmm.
Cisco and LinkedIn. Hence, the creation of this employer branding
Right.
platform.
Just quickly, for those who are watching, and if you're not familiar with the HR, workplace, analytics industry, Mercer is one of the biggest, if not the biggest player in the world. The Asia Pacific head is actually my very good friend, Mr. Daryl Parant. I know you're not watching, but I'm just gonna shout out anyway. I'm gonna see you in Melbourne very soon when all this lockdown is over. But Mercer is one of the biggest player, and it says a lot to be able to be a part of that organization, right? And I'm so excited now to ask a couple of questions, the next questions, because working from organizations like Mercer's, these are the world's biggest players, not Asia, not a certain country's player, the world's biggest players in the HR and workplace industry, right? So, Miss Cass, you mentioned earlier there was something like a mismatch between at that point in your journey with being in LinkedIn, there was
Mm,
something missing.
mm.
What made you decide that look, I'm not gonna jump into another corporate. I'm gonna start a startup. What was that decision process like for you, and what made you decide
I,
to do that?
it wasn't like a light bulb moment that ding, I want to do a startup. It was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questioning. It was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
painful conversations with myself, right? Can I do this? I mean, can I give up the stability of a corporate job that pays really good?
Mm-hmm.
I earn in Singapore dollars, but I spend in Philippine pesos. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy, right? That's like
Yeah.
you can really do a lot of things. But what made me switch was that I knew I needed a change of scenery because I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing corporate for a long time. And again, I was in sales, and the pressure in
Mm-hmm.
sales is insane.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be called out for all the stuff that you don't do. And even if you
Mm-hmm.
do well, you're only as good as your last deal, right? So even if you achieve 100% or even 150% last quarter, people just don't care. You got to do better this quarter. And I guess,
Mm-hmm.
at a young age, that pressure was mounting up. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this anymore. I need to do something else. So I guess, it was that. It was I needed a change in scenery. And I thought startups was gonna be less, less
Mm-hmm.
pressure. But boy, am I wrong
Mm-mm.
about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Cheers to that.
Wow.
Hold on, I'm gonna get another glass of wine.
Yeah,
Here's
we
to a
gotta drink
different
to
kind
that
of
because, like,
pleasure.
oh man, I thought.
Cheers.
Mm.
Let's do it the Vietnamese way. Mop
Okay. Mo,
hai ba.
mo, pai ba. Oh, oh,
Yo.
yo.
Yes.
Mm.
Right.
Oh God.
So just let me just recap that a little bit. So you were in a corporate and you said, "Look, this is not working for me. Something's missing. This is not the type of environment that works for me at this point
Yeah.
in my life. Maybe startup is something that it's going to be new, different, outside these big corporate
Yeah.
giants that you were involved with." And did you expect the types of experiences that you have when you decided to start a startup?
No. Wow, God.
Okay.
I guess
What was it like? Mm-mm,
it was crazy different, right? I mean, I
mm-mm,
again, like what you said, I worked in the biggest companies in the world.
mm-hmm,
They have really good processes.
mm-hmm,
They have really great practices. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of
mm-hmm,
stability. But when I started to open my own startup, I'm like, holy crap, right? How do you get
mm-hmm,
started? There's
mm-hmm,
no framework, there's no guidebook, there's no playbook to
mm-hmm,
be a founder.
mm-hmm,
So it was a lot of research. It was a lot of not even, it took a lot of risk. And then
mm-hmm.
I don't know how you call this in English, but it's called discarte.
Mm.
Uh,
Um, Techniques.
yeah, some
The
weird
closest word is
techniques,
a
right,
technique, right? Yeah, yeah,
to get you to the next
yeah,
level
yeah,
of your startup. It was a lot
yeah.
of sleepless nights, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
crying, a lot of
Oh God.
just doubting yourself and imposter syndrome. Am I gonna be
Mm-hmm.
found
Mm-hmm.
out? I'm a fraud. I'm a young person trying to create this company.
Mm-hmm.
Are they gonna believe
Mm-hmm.
me? it
Mm-hmm.
was it was very difficult. I did not expect that. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I
Yeah.
was shocked to go through.
Yeah. It's really gonna, for those of you guys who are watching, I really resonate to this. Like, there is, there's just a lot of things that you feel like you're not worth that part of your journey because you don't know what to do next. You feel like there's always something missing. And a lot of times, like work bean, you're actually doing great for a first startup, for a
Yeah.
new young industry in the Philippines, like employer branding. You're actually doing amazing. You guys have to check out workbean.co. But when you're there, you don't see this. A lot of founders actually forget to sit down, take a deep breath, and say, look, I've done a little bit of something new and good here.
Yeah.
And there are no people actually, this is the reality of it, Miss Cass. Starting a startup on the baby steps is actually a moment where you realize there's nobody around, there's not many around. And when there's not many around, nobody's gonna tell you, look, you're doing something good here, keep going. It's very rare if you're starting out. And I see what you're saying here. I definitely can relate. I know you have a start an investment coming in. Trust me, your network's gonna start growing again. But but I know how it feels. I definitely resonate to it. So for you guys, if you're watching, you're gonna jump in a new company, a new startup. Be
Yeah.
prepared
Mm,
to have your network sync. There are gonna be really few people who are gonna be around.
yeah.
And you need to
True.
tell yourself that now. I'm ready to go through this with few people around because my vision is great and I'm strong enough to take on this journey. Say that to
True.
yourself. That's gonna help a lot. All
That's
right.
true. That's true. I absolutely believe that because there's just a lot of heartaches in this journey. So,
Oh my God. Can we just have another toast for that,
oh
please? Let's do it Filipino way. Tagay!
my god!
This
Yeah,
is
that's true.
it's a huge gamble on a personal level and a professional level because there's a higher probability you're gonna fail if you have amazing background like someone who worked with Cisco, with LinkedIn. There's a bit of you like, look, I can do this, and then you jump in there, and
And
then
then you're like,
boom,
what the hell is this? I
right,
had known nothing at all. So yeah.
right. Just quick shout out, Miss Cass, before I ask the next question. We have, of course, Mr. Zai here, who's our regular viewer. Mr. Zai is going to be my co-founder for my 2022 startup. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a fabulous startup. I'm going to keep everybody updated to that. We have, of course, Miss Shello, who is now my co-founder for Wellness, the mental health app for the Philippines. We're also joined by the beautiful Miss Luan, who's our host for our TV show here in Vietnam with Yan TV. We're also joined by Mr. Matt, whom I'm still trying to win to be one of our guests here. He's very busy and he has a question. We will answer that question later on. All right. Moving on. We also have some inputs, by the way. Mr. Julian said Descartes is equal Descartes. All right. Okay, that's actually funny. Mr. Zyrus has a question. We're gonna answer that now, Miss Cass. Should we? He said starting a startup can be daunting. Where did you start, Cass? Mm-hmm. Miss Cass, I think you're mute.
Sorry. Oh my god. I was
All
like
right.
cramping
All right.
and
Let's have a toast first before we answer the question. Go.
love it. Mm.
All right.
No, but I love this question so much because this was actually the very first question I asked myself, right? And the very first instance where we formed our very first company core value, which is to
Mhm.
practice intellectual humility.
Mhm.
Because I started with the belief that I can't do it alone.
Mhm.
A lot of the news will tell you, say, Mark Zuckerberg is the only one celebrated for Facebook, or like Elon
Mhm.
Musk is the only one celebrated for Tesla. But I
Mhm.
believe there's like people around him that helped him do that, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
not being talked a lot about. But I
Mhm.
realized that I have my strengths, but I have a lot of weaknesses, and I needed
Mhm.
someone to fill in for those weaknesses that I had. So the very first thing I did was really, of course, to study the market, to study if there's like a feasibility at all or anything like that. But a lot of it was really through my gut feel. And
Mhm.
the very first thing that I did was really find a co-founder, which I
Mhm.
did. Beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful person.
Mhm.
I knew that I don't like doing finance. I do not
Mhm.
like operations. I do not like looking at numbers. I like to be told what the numbers are, and then I can
Mhm.
tell you how to execute on those numbers. But you
Mhm.
cannot see me going through excels after excels,
Mhm.
right? So I had to find a person who loves doing that for a living, who will
Mhm.
not complain if he does that 24/7. And that's what I did. I found a co-founder who would fill in my weaknesses.
Mhm.
And then when I did that, it all, at least there's a shared burden. Again,
Mhm.
it's not an
Mhm.
easy journey, but at least you share the burden with someone,
Mhm.
so it lightens the load a little bit. So
Mhm.
that was the very first thing I did.
I love that. I never heard this before, and probably there are reasons there. It says you started with accepting, the term you said, intellectual humility.
Yeah.
I think my startup journey also, I think it started with knowing myself better, like
Mm,
what can I do and what I cannot do. Because sometimes in my corporate journey, I was doing digital marketing and I'm quite good at it. And everybody's just like surprised with what I could deliver. And then you started a startup where you have to be everything. So you have to do HR, you have to do finance, etc. So accept knowing yourself better and then going to a place where you have this intellectual humility and really finding complementary skills from people you work with and building your core team, which we're going to go into very
yeah,
soon in this conversation, is very, very powerful. And also to a point where you actually respect everybody's expertise.
exactly.
This is
Exactly.
really the moment. Running startup was a moment for me to realize, like, look, I don't know how to do this, and I appreciate and I value that expertise that these people can do, like tech and coding. And stuff. So I
Yeah,
really have a huge respect for this finance, investment, things that I have no time for. Okay. Cheers. Cheers for another drink. Yo. All right.
yo.
Let's answer a couple of questions before we go into the top three learnings, Miss Cass.
Hmm.
First question, let's try to answer Mr. Matt's question. He said, Miss Cass, how do you keep a young company's culture alive and your team aligned during a pandemic? Oh, God. All right.
I love that. People think, oh, Cass is so young, she might have like a lot
Mhm.
of like really cool young ideas. But gosh, when you
Mhm.
find out that there's like a whole bunch of Gen Zs who have their own world, you realize you
Yep.
don't know a lot. You
Mhm.
realize that what you know as a millennial is so archaic. So when the
Mhm.
whole pandemic happened, I mean, I've
Mhm.
never worked remotely in my life. I love going to the office. I like dressing up. I like, making myself look good when I go out and all that stuff.
Mhm.
When the pandemic hit, again, I knew that was my weakness.
Mhm.
How do I get a team who's used to working remotely actually convince me to make this work? So I
Mhm.
enlisted the help of my young developers.
Mhm.
Our chief product officer, she's amazing. She's like, every new technology there is on collaboration, on like video technology,
Mhm.
she's like, let's do it. Let's get the free trial. Let's just do it. Let's move to Slack. Let's move to Discord.
Yes.
Don't like Discord anymore. Let's go to
Yeah.
Gather. All these things. And I'm like, oh my God, every week there's something new. But that's how we keep the culture alive. We don't allow ourselves to get comfortable with the certain technology um, all of the time.
Mhm.
We allow ourselves to experiment and experiment on even
Mm-hmm.
collaboration tools after collaboration tools,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it also stimulates the brain that,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't be comfortable with our product as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we have to use another sort of collaboration tool, if we have to use another video technology to keep us all united, let's do that, because it
Mm-hmm.
kind of influences the way the product and engineering team thinks
Mm-hmm.
too. Because they're like, oh, they're
Mm-hmm.
so open to changes, they're so open to trying new things out. Then maybe if I suggest something that's crazy for the product feature or something like that, they might listen. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what we do, right? So I mean, people are gonna tell you the usual stuff, right? We do game nights, we do all of these things, but
Mm-hmm.
that's already something that has to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But for
Mm-hmm.
us, it's the openness to having people suggest what you can do differently. So
Mm-hmm.
now our virtual office is on gather.town. If you don't
Oh, I
know
know
it,
that. I know
you
that.
amazing. You can literally just virtually walk up to someone as if you're in an office.
Right. It's like an old Game Boy game, right?
I love it. We're all there, we're hanging out. We get our own desks. We get our own whiteboard.
Right.
Amazing. And that's how we keep the culture alive. We try a lot of
Mm.
things.
All right. So because that's part of your employer brand, and that's the culture you're trying to build, right? So I
Exactly.
think to add to this, it's really identifying first. You need to be decisive and purpose. How do you call this? Like you have a purpose on what type of culture you want to build.
Of course.
Because you need to be decisive about it. I want to have an innovative, open culture. This is the type of culture that's going to work for me. Because you're an employer branding company and you're an HR technology platform, right? So it's really aligned with that. And it's so powerful, allowing people to suggest new things, experiment in new things. And this helps a lot on the innovation as well, especially for a young startup. My favorite book, no, I have a lot of favorite books. One of my favorite books, Miss Cass, and I really suggest reading this. It's called How to Steal the Fire.
How to seal
Um,
the
how to Steal the Fires. It's basically revolving around the premise that everything is a signal, everything is a piece of a puzzle, and you being exposed to different signals and pieces of puzzles allow you to creatively put them together and build your own. That originality is not real, it's just a combination of patterns and signals that you are exposed to. So it's so powerful for a startup like yours to allow your team to be exposed to as many signals and possibilities as possible so you can continuously innovate and create something new. That's very, very powerful, and you're walking the talk because you're an employer branding company, so
We have to.
you have a strong employer branding company.
We
I
have
think to add to this answer, Miss Cass, I also wanted to add authenticity and consistency.
Mm,
To be able to build a culture alive, you need to be decisive on what type of culture you
yes,
want to build, but it has to be authentic because people can see through the lens, so to speak.
they
If
will.
you're
They
not being
will.
real, they will call you out, and it's a
They
big
will.
no no. So I'm telling my team now, I'm not the nicest boss you can have. I am not. And I know that. And you have to know that before you come in here. We are the organization that's going to allow you to manage your own time. We're going to look at your results. If you need help, we will provide you help. But you're not going to get the best boss in the world. I am not. But you have the freedom to
I love it.
experiment, to do your things and all that, right? And consistency, because no matter how good your decision of what culture you want to build, if you do not
Mm.
communicate that consistently, if you don't do that consistently, it's going to get lost. The narrative's going to get lost. So
And
openness,
I, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. So openness
I,
from Ms. Cass, authenticity and consistency. I think those are three things I'm going to input to answer this question.
no,
Ms.
I love
Cass.
it. I actually want to
Mhm,
add on to what you just said, right?
mhm,
If you want to keep it authentic and consistent, there has to be some kind of
mhm.
framework that people will anchor to. And this is what
Yeah.
we always tell, customers. This is what we always tell
Mhm,
everybody, and even ourselves, is that culture
mhm,
starts from your core values as a company. I see startups,
mm,
sprout up, and then you ask them, do you have a mission at least? Do you have a vision for your
mm,
startup? They're gonna say, okay, yes, because that's a basic requirement of building a company. What's your mission?
mhm,
But if you ask them, do you have core values that keep you
mhm,
grounded as a company? Often
mhm,
they will say they don't have. And the beautiful thing about
mm,
establishing core values is that you don't have to have it all figured out on day one. you can actually improve and iterate on it. Like your core value last year can change from
Yeah.
this year because it's a completely different landscape. But it's
Right.
fine. At least you put it in place. That's the foundation on, everybody's working operating principle or working principle. At least they
Mm-hmm.
know that's how we need to
Mm-hmm.
work now. But
Mm-hmm.
when the pandemic happened, we actually changed our core values because we
Mm-hmm.
had to adjust, and people hold each other accountable to these core values.
I love
And
that accountability.
it's
I
it's
love
it's
that.
great. It's a great sort
Mm-hmm.
of neutralizer for everybody, even for me with my
Mm-hmm.
team. They call me out on the core values if I don't practice
Mm-hmm.
it, which is, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
see that that's how culture is built at the end of the day.
Mm. And I guess that's why it's called culture. That's why it evolves. Culture evolves. It's not stagnant. If it's stagnant, that's not culture. That's nothing, right?
Mm.
Just to look at our logo, for example, and move up, there are four dots on the upper right of
Mm.
the screen, right? So the yellow one, that's why I always say authenticity, because I don't want to be just superfluous about everything. The yellow dot, the little one, the smallest one on our logo is actually financial stability. Because a
Mm.
lot of organizations talk about this and that and that. They don't talk about making sure everybody has no problem with money.
Right.
So for us as a company, our littlemost dot in Move Up, the yellow one, symbolizes financial stability. It's my goal to make everybody in the company rich or at least
Yes.
financially stable, right? The green one, the green circle is actually about sustainability. That no matter how rich you get, no matter how much money you have, you need to think about sustainability, about people around you, the environment, causes. Pink is, of course, learning, and purple is excellence. That's the four circles of Move Up, right?
I love it.
But it's not superfluous. The first one is money, and that's important. You won't have headache if you have enough money. I'm telling you right now.
I
All right,
always tell that to my team too. So yeah.
all right, let's get into it. Our audience are very active again. We have a lot of questions. We're gonna answer your questions, guys, later. But allow me first to ask, Miss Cass. I told you earlier, I have this vision about. I'm surrounded by a lot of amazing people. Miss Luan, for example, who's an up and coming coaching superstar here in Vietnam. Mr. Lam, who's a Google exec in France, who
Wow.
started his startup here. I'm surrounded by a lot of amazing people. So I was thinking, like, if I could learn three things from these people, what would it be? And sometimes when you know a lot, it's so difficult to choose your top three. So I challenge everyone I meet, especially my guests here in Startup and Wine, on what would be your top three learnings. Let's focus a little bit about forming a team, because that's our theme tonight. What would be your top three advice to build your startup core team? Let's start with number one, and let's explore the story behind it.
Core team. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
do not rush it. I guess when you're a startup, you're super excited about things, and this happens a lot
Mm-hmm.
when you're finding someone to fill in for your weakness because you want to have it right
Mm-hmm.
away. As a startup,
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna say you have to move fast, you gotta break things, you gotta
Mm-hmm.
move at the speed of light, but
Mm-hmm.
do not sacrifice your core people in the team in doing that. And I don't know, Paul, maybe you've experienced this, but we've experienced hiring out of desperation,
Oh yeah.
which
Mm-hmm.
resulted to a lot of money lost. And as a
Mm-hmm.
startup, as a first time founder, the very
Mm-hmm.
money that I put into my startup was my savings, right? And that was more painful because
Mm-hmm.
I spent that money with the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the very first hard truth that hit me as a startup founder, is that you can never ever rush something, especially when it comes to people, because you gotta establish trust, you gotta establish accountability, and of course, the kind of skills that would not just stand for today, but can drive your company to the next level. So that's the very first thing I learned in this whole thing, because it just cost a lot of money. It was really painful, and that was really my first lesson.
I
Do
have
not
I have
do
a
that.
lot of things to say about this. First and foremost, I just want to reiterate that, guys, especially for first times, if your founder or your co-founders are first time startup founders, and you're gonna work with them, please know that it's their hard earned money. It's our hard earned money. We saved it, and we're investing it on this vision that we have in our head that we want to achieve, and the salaries, the expenses that we are incurring is our money. It's we we worked hard to get that money, and you have to know that deeply, that the salary that you're receiving, I'm sorry if this is a little bit biased because I'm a founder, but I want you guys to know, if you're going to work with with startup, especially without funding, that the funding is coming from the founders bucket, and we earned that, and we saved that, and we're investing it on this vision. So if you're not fully on board that vision, please don't come in for the sake of having a job,
That's true.
because you're not only spending our money, you're stopping us from achieving our vision that we're gambling with,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
Right. That's something that is sometimes not said, because you come across very entitled if you say it, right? But people don't understand. We have a goal, we have a vision that's gonna service a bigger market. And if you come in here without believing in that vision, and you're just coming in because you need a job, please don't. It's our money, it's our vision on the line.
That's why. That's
So,
true.
yeah. So we have a lot of feedback. So Mr. Lam said, I can't agree more with Kass on counterintuitively hiring slowly to avoid hiring because of
Yes.
desperation. This is so powerful. We have a how to call this, a theme in when it comes to HR: hire carefully, fire fast.
Yes. Hard flow,
Um,
fire fast. Yes.
yeah, I did the reverse when I was starting out. I was hiring quickly, and I don't fire right away because I was afraid to have the difficult conversations, and that costed me a lot.
Me
Right?
too.
Costed me a lot. It's difficult to have the difficult conversations. It's just I couldn't do it when I was starting out. Yeah. All
Even
right.
I can't do it
Miss,
now.
oh, really? You have to do
Hope
it
someone else
now.
do it for me.
Yeah.
Joking.
She's having a great investment coming in. So anyway, Miss Luan said, yes, agree. Wrong hires. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait until you hire an amateur. This is so true. I couldn't agree with this more. Sometimes though, you don't have a budget, so you need to hire the amateur, but you need to weigh in budget and results. Okay,
Yeah.
sometimes this is the biggest challenge with startups, because you don't have the offer that LinkedIn or Cisco could give, but you have the same need, right?
True.
Okay, so don't rush anything, especially when it comes to people. What made you think that? If before I go to lesson number 2,
What
what
made
was this? What was the story behind? It was it recently that, or what's
no.
the story behind that?
Before working, there was this like teeny tiny startup that I started to play around with. I just
Mhm.
wanted to create this like digital repository of like amazing resume builders and all that stuff
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
state universities in the Philippines who don't get
Mhm.
access to the same opportunities that we get as people who graduate from
Mhm.
like the universities from the city.
Mhm.
So it was fun at first, right? But working with universities is a headache. So if anyone's going to to work with educational institutions, think very carefully. It's very expensive and it's a very long process. But
Mm.
we did get someone who was really good, right? He's like a full stack guy. He worked part time.
Mm.
Again, I rushed it because I was still, in the early stages of figuring out how to create a startup, and then
Mm.
you want a product shipped right away, so you get someone good and all that stuff. But again, because I rushed it, I
Mm.
rushed getting him because I needed to show something to an investor. Gosh,
Mm.
I don't want to even go back to that, but whatever, right?
Mm.
I rushed it. I rushed the guy. I burned him out. He hated me, cursed me. He's like,
Mm.
"You don't have a
Mm.
heart. You work me to the bone and
Mm.
all that stuff."
Mm.
And that was just painful.
Mm.
He did get stuff done, but it was at the expense of my relationship with that
With
person.
him.
And I
Mm.
burned him
Mm.
out. And for someone who
Mm.
talks big about culture and all that stuff, that was a big
Mm.
blow to me, having someone
Mm.
tell you
Mm.
that you freaking burned me out. So that was the time that I realized, it's not just a lot of money lost, but it's, I started to doubt myself because of that.
Yeah. And
Can
that's
I?
that's that's one of the most painful things, right? Like when you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed and you just like lie awake and you ask yourself like, look, what am I doing this? Can I actually do this?
Yeah,
And that's the
exactly.
worst part. But congratulations, because I know you're gonna get the next funding. So it means you passed that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, let's go to
Okay.
top learning number two, Miss Cass. What would be
Um,
your top learning number two?
top learning number two is it's okay to break down.
Oh
Um,
God.
it's okay to break down. I don't know. It's not talked a lot about. I've tried
Mm,
to dig into podcasts or Quoras or Reddits that talk
mm,
about founders really giving up.
mhm.
There's not a lot. I mean, there are some, but it doesn't really talk about the pain, the it doesn't talk
Oh
about the
God.
real emotional process involved to admit that yeah, you're not okay because it's not
Yeah.
easy. It's your reputation on the line, it's your money on the line, it's your
Mm-hmm.
future on the line, it's everything you've got on the line,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people expect you to put on a brave face every time you pitch, but you always get rejected. When you get rejected, it makes you doubt, am I the right person to do this? Is it because I'm not an American? Is it because I don't have an education from MIT or Stanford and all that stuff? It starts to pile up. And then you see all these
Mm,
funding news from other startups, and you're just
mm,
like, holy crap, I'm not cut out
yeah.
for this. So my take is it's okay to break down. I mean, for me, the only
Mm,
thing that keeps me sane is that this is my first startup. It's okay to fail. It's okay to figure things
mm,
out, but you
mm,
gotta admit when things are falling apart. And I do admit it
mm,
to my team, right? That's
mm,
why it's very important to hire the right people in the beginning because you gotta be vulnerable to
mm,
these people. So my chief product officer, right? When I'm not in the right mindset, I would tell her that I'm just not in the right place right now. I need you to
mm,
wake me up and tell me again why
mm,
we're doing this.
mm,
Because sometimes I'm just not motivated to go to work, and that's the truth, right? As a
mm,
founder, you're not always motivated, but at least there's someone accountable who reminds you of why you're doing this. So it's okay.
mm.
It's perfectly fine to admit that you're not okay.
I love this line so much. And I wish I knew this before. And I wish I had someone I could say this. Tell
Mm,
me again why I am doing this.
yeah.
This is so powerful. Can someone please, if I could go back, years ago and I had someone and I knew this. If you're a startup founder, this is an amazing advice. Find someone now, not later. Now, someone you're
Mm,
gonna be open, someone you're gonna be comfortable with, whom you're gonna say, "Can you please tell me again why I'm doing this?" It's so powerful. I cannot explain how much I resonate to this because I didn't have anyone in my journey whom I could go to. Even I was ashamed to my family because I've
same.
been very, very successful, right? Like as a in the corporate scene,
Corporate. Yeah.
as an investor. But when I was actually running my own startup, I was failing miserably. It's
Mm,
maybe not on the standards of people looking from outside, but on my own standards, I was questioning
exactly.
myself, right? And I didn't
Exactly.
have this. This is so powerful. Oh my God, you young lady. Oh, she's so young. So this is so powerful. I wish I had someone I could look in the eye at the end of the day or the beginning of a day and say, please, can you tell me again why I'm doing this? I need
Yeah.
this. I need a reminder. And this is powerful. Let me just look into the comment section very quickly. Mr. Lam said, I'm feeling the same. I remember one day I came to the office and after I opened my laptop, my
My
buddy
body.
just told me it's time to go back home and it was 10.
It happens. It happens. Even, it happens to me. I go to work, it's 9 a.m. and I'm like, I don't want to do this. It
I
happens.
had this today. So we're launching tomorrow a new app because I got a little bit addicted about, investing and creating startups. Every year I invest a new one. And today I feel like, oh my God, I already had my espresso. but I for the last 3 days, 4 days, I was just exhausted.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and and I'm gonna do this tomorrow. I'm gonna find someone and say, "Can you please remind me why I'm doing this? This is
Mm.
so powerful." And Mr. Lam, actually, just a quick background about him. He was my first guest in the show, and he was in France. He was in Google Ireland, which is the epicenter of Google transactions in Europe. And he decided to come back to Vietnam and be part of a startup. So how crazy that is that, right? Um, Miss Luan second the motion and said, learning number two, it's strength
Thank
to say
you.
this, Cass. Oh,
Thank
she's
you, Miss
such
Luan.
a coach. I love her.
Love
She's one
her.
of Miss Luan is one of the people I have around every day that I interact with. That's so funny, and Miss Twingan if she's watching and so on. Right. Sir Eman, my co-founder for Wellness, said falling into pieces may actually be falling into places.
Oh, love.
This is so powerful. Oh my God, you guys. So this year, Miss Cass, by the way, just a quick background about Sir Eman.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year, usually October last year, every year, I have a bunch of startup on the table, and then I decide which startup to invest
Mm.
financially, energetically, and expertise wise. And I decided to go with wellness because it's about mental health. I
I love
feel
it.
like a
Love it.
lot of people are needing help on that sphere. And a lot of people also back home in the Philippines who are experts on this field, right? But there's no platform that connects them,
Yes, agree. I
right?
agree.
And that's what wellness is, connecting people who actually has the expertise and who wants to help and people who are needing help. That's what wellness is. And Sir Eman is my business partner for that one.
Love
All
it.
right. Moving on, Miss Cass. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, we're almost nine.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with top learning number three before we answer questions from our audience. What would be your top learning number three?
Top learning number three, on top of number two, I
Mm-hmm.
learned this from attending church.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about being consistent with you going to church and all that stuff. But I applied it to the startup. It's with number two. It's okay to not be okay, but when motivation is lacking, rely
Mm-hmm.
on discipline.
Mm-hmm.
As a startup founder, again, as
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's a normal person,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just wake up with a blah feeling. You don't want to go to work. People think founders are superstars or like superheroes, but we're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when motivation is lacking, we always remind each other to rely on discipline. You have deliverables today, do it. You
Mm-hmm.
committed to do it today, do it. You committed to show up to
Mm-hmm.
this meeting, do it. Because everybody has phases, right? You have ups and downs, and we respect that, we understand that. But if you
Mm-hmm.
commit to something, we do expect you to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with in line with number two, we answer that by doing number three.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Like you you are really, really amazing. Like I can you guys, if you're looking into finding out what's your employer branch is the person to talk to. Um,
Yeah,
just by
help you with that.
how just by just by the brilliance of realizing this number one and to articulate it so well that I and people who are watching can resonate. So when motivation is missing, rely on discipline. Let me share a little bit about on how I resonate to this. There are days when look the caffeine is really not working. So no matter how much Vietnamese coffee I have or how many glasses of Vietnamese, this is just cans of Vietnamese coffee I had today on my desk. Right?
Oh wow.
Sometimes it's just caffeine just doesn't work. Sometimes
Exactly.
just going in that meeting and just finishing small tasks or things that have to be done for the day
Yes.
gives you a bit of a like look. Oh wow. Okay, now I'm a little bit refueled, right? And sometimes you jump in a meeting and you jump in meeting who are people that are inspiring, and all of a sudden, look, the thing that you're looking for, you found in a meeting. And sometimes just sticking to the plan, doing it anyway, accomplishing something, no matter how big or small it is, for the day or for the time, is so, so powerful. Um, Zai just said,
Thank
so Zai
you.
is my business partner for next year. Startup, he said, powerful points, Miss Cass.
Thanks.
Jeremy said, consistency is key. Sir Eman said, an honor to be your partner in wellness, Paul. Guys, please visit wellness.app. We're launching
Love
soon.
it.
We're going to be giving away free wellness codes so you guys have free subscriptions.
I want
I'm
that.
gonna give to Workbean and to everybody who's working in Workbean. We're gonna work together. We're gonna give away codes to your
Do it.
clients. Yep.
Let's do it.
Let's make mental health something that is not a taboo to talk about. Let's normalize the conversation. Let's provide easy access to help, because there are people who are not open to saying they need help. I needed help. I probably still need help, but I wasn't comfortable to talk about it. I didn't know where to go. There's
Mm,
wellness
mm, mm.
now. All right. Um,
There's a
I
comment
love.
here. Oh, okay.
There's someone watching from England. Hello,
Oh,
Miss Glenn. Oh my God! Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Again, we're live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on WisePass. So, you guys, if you are in the Philippines or in Vietnam, check out wisepass.co. All right. Um, we have a couple of questions, Miss Cass, from the
yeah.
audience. Let's try to answer them before our final message. Jeremy, who's my brother, he's always a part of anything I create.
Oh,
And
love.
he said, yes, he was there with me, like really in the most difficult times. So I
Uh-huh.
make it a commitment that whatever I open, he's gonna benefit from it, because I won't be here without the support he has given me in the company. All right. So he said, what are your top three most important traits you look for when you're hiring?
Uh, Number one is I just ask myself, after that incident, I just started to ask myself
Mm,
after I talked to someone. Number one, am I gonna
mm,
like working with this person? Am I,
mm,
if I see this person every day, am I gonna be okay with it, or am I just
mm,
hiring this person just because I need someone to
mm,
fill in the hot seat right
mm,
now, right? So I do ask that, when the going gets tough, based on how
mm,
we're talking right now, would I want
mhm,
to be with this person when the going gets tough? Because it's like a
mm,
relationship, building your core team is also like finding a wife or a husband or a partner anyway.
mm.
So
It is.
that's the very first thing. So
Yep.
the very first hire I had is Zane. Hey Zane, if you're there, she's our chief product officer. Amazing woman. Do not poach her.
Mhm.
She's amazing. She won't get poached today.
You
But
have the
that's the very
investment now, so.
I'll pay you higher. Don't worry. But the first thing I asked myself after I had a chat with her, because we clicked, right? I mean, in
Mm,
interviews, you usually click with someone, but I asked myself after that interview, if the going gets tough and when shit hits the fan, am I gonna
mm,
want to work with her? Am I gonna be annoyed at her
mm,
face if that happens or not? So that's one. Number two is this person smarter than me? Again, as a founder, sometimes some
mm,
founders would feel entitled because you've already established a company. You'd think that you know everything, but you don't. You just don't.
mm,
So if you have the humility to accept the fact that when you interview this
mm,
person, you get to know this person, that you're okay with this person being smarter than you, just get that
mm,
person,
mm,
because you're not always the smartest person in the room anyway, and it has to be someone else, right? So that's two. And number three, one of the things that I really look for, of course, is this person skilled enough to do whatever I
yep.
want to do with my vision.
Mm,
So
mhm,
the skill comes after, because when you screen the resume or when you screen a
mhm,
CV or a profile, you know if the person has the skill set, right? So I put it on
mm,
the last bit because you've already done that homework anyway. So
mm,
those two questions first. Am I gonna get annoyed if things get rough? And number two, is this
mm,
person better than me? So it
mm.
depends on your answers on those first two questions. And I hope that helps, Jeremy.
Mm. I think that's so powerful. And there's a line there, like you're not gonna be the smartest person in the room all the time,
Mm,
especially if you're in your 20s. Be in a room where it's an opportunity for you to learn, and just absorb
yeah,
learning from everyone. That learning curve kind of slows down now that I'm in my 30s. Um,
doesn't look like it. Don't worry.
because I'm in move up. I have to edit. Sometimes if the editor cannot take all the videos, I have to help them edit the video. So I'm learning from editing videos and move up. Right. Sir Evan said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Lam, because Mr. Lam is also Vietnamese French. He asked me to read Jeremy's question in French accent. So I'm just gonna read Jeremy's thank you in French accent. Thanks, Miss Cass. Thanks, Paul. That's it. Sir Evan said, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
Every
I
action
need
you
to pause a little bit. Every action you take is a vote for the person. Oh, in simpler terms, for startup founders out there, your actions right now are an investment on the person that you are becoming.
Mm,
So, whatever decisions, actions you're making now is going to contribute to who you are as a person, as an entrepreneur. So, be conscious about it. A lot of times we are not aware of this because of the environment that we're revolving in as startup founders. One thing that I always teach, not teach, like share startup founders, Miss Cass, is I was a yogi for 3 years, like really, really strict yogi because I'm vegetarian. And part of that journey in my late 20s, I was in yoga. I'm always in Thailand every month for yoga retreats. One thing that I learned in that part of my life is every person is operating coming from two places. One is a space of fear and a space of love. If you're angry, and there will be a lot of times that you will be angry as a
mm,
startup founder, is
mm.
that you're not angry just because you're angry, because you want to be angry, because you're scared about something. And you need to identify what scares you that made you angry. And for those who are working for a founder or a co founder,
Yeah.
if your boss is always angry, try to reflect a little bit. What is he scared of? Is he having an investors meeting tomorrow that he's so stressed about? That's why he's angry. Right?
Anyways,
And yeah, and because you are on the receiving end of that anger, try to step back a little bit and reflect, how can I not address the anger but address the fear?
mm,
Because if you address the anger, that's gonna grow into bigger anger. If you
true.
address the fear, you're gonna solve the
You're even
fear,
gonna help the person, right? Yeah, that's true.
right? And you're gonna remove that anger. Um,
Love, spoken like a true yogi. Love it.
All right. So I stopped a little for 2 years now because of the lockdown. But I wish to go back to that journey. It was a different space. It was a different self. And I guess self is like culture. It evolves all
It,
the time. All
it
right.
does.
All right. For the interest of time, Miss Cass, because we're already 9 p.m. Vietnam, 10 p.m. Philippines.
Wow.
We're gonna have one yo mot hai ba
Mot hai ba.
yo
Yo.
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 All right.
Mm,
I saw one last, like, very interesting question earlier from Jeremy about validating a startup idea
mm.
before our final message. He said, "Hi, Miss Cass. How did you validate your idea when you started? Did you get any help from LinkedIn to launch?" Can we answer
No,
this, Miss
I
Cass?
didn't get any help from LinkedIn, but I
All right.
did get a lot of help from my past experiences working with HR
Mm,
people, and not just HR people,
mm,
but
mm,
working in my job as a salesperson. So I borrowed a lot of experience from that
mm,
corporate journey. But
mm,
validating an idea is an entirely different journey. You actually have to be on the ground talking to
mm,
your future customers, trying to
mm,
understand if this makes sense or
mhm,
not. And
mhm,
validating an idea for me just never stops,
mhm,
because there's just always something new that you have to ask your customers about. There's just always something new that you have to get feedback on. But when we started, we did pool a number of like HR people to come together. Oh, on a wine night. So we are organized like a wine event, specifically designed for like HR people to share with us sort of their pain points, what are they most frustrated about. And the funny
Mm,
thing was, we were validating a completely different idea then. And
mm,
they all resonatingly said they don't care for whatever we were building at that time.
mhm,
So in that same night, we pivoted to work bean, and that's another story. We were
mm,
validating
love.
this idea about giving opportunities to fresh graduates. And oh my god, I'm so sorry if there are any fresh graduates here, but they're like, oh, but we don't really want fresh grads. We want people who are plug and play, who can
Mm,
get started and all. I went, oh my god, the whole business that I was thinking at that time was for fresh grads. So
mm,
during that night, we scrapped the entire idea and we're like, let's do something different. And that's the birth of work bean, during that faithful little wine night that we couldn't
mm.
afford, but we did anyway.
Oh my God, this is so powerful. I think one word for tonight, before our final message, is evolution. We talked a little bit about culture earlier, and culture is continuously evolving. That's why it's culture. Whether it's social culture, it's corporate culture, company culture. Self is also evolving, right?
Yes.
Continuously. We talk a little bit about that, and the same to answer this question, to validate your initial idea. Validating a product is not it's not one stop. It's also evolving continuously, because maybe your initial idea will work, but what's the next step?
Mm.
And this is more on product creation perspective and on an investment perspective as well, because when you get a funding, they're going to ask you, what are you going to do with the money? What's
Yeah.
the roadmaps going to be like? So when you're validating a startup idea, it's not one stop. It's, I love this, sticking with your customers, continuously having a healthy conversation with your customers. One tip though, don't make them feel like you don't know what you're doing. Make sure that you provide value first. Like, look, here's what we're going to deliver, but we want to give you more value. So what do you need? So
Yeah.
get their feedback, while making sure that you are the person or the company to provide the initial solution to the problem that they have. Right.
Mm.
All right. So for the interest of time, Miss Cass, we're gonna ask for your final message to people who are watching right now, especially to startup founders, hustlers, or people who are thinking of opening a startup.
Well, I see a lot of like your co-founders or like people who are starting out their own companies. It's not easy, but find an accountability partner. You can't
Mm-hmm.
do this journey alone. It's true what they say, it's lonely. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it You got to give up a lot of things, but if
Mm-hmm.
you do have an accountability partner with you who will remind you every single time of why you're doing what you're doing, then
Mm-hmm.
you're better for it, at that time when you're just down. And again, it's okay to be down. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it's okay. But just remember that, like what I said earlier, right? When you're just not motivated enough to do something, rely on your self discipline, because as a founder, that's one of the key skills and strengths that we need to have to establish really great businesses at the end of the day. So yeah, that's really all. It's okay to be vulnerable.
Fantastic, Miss Cass. Thank you so much for your time. For people who are watching, what a brilliant young. Can I just say the word Filipina founder we have tonight? I am blessed, and I think I appreciate the universe for allowing my journey to intersect with your journey.
Me too.
I am inspired by you, and I know you inspire a lot more. And with the strength and the vision you have, you're gonna inspire a lot more who are watching tonight and people who are gonna interact in the coming years. I am publicly committing that whatever resources and expertise I have is an extension of
I love
whatever
it.
you
You've
need.
always been super
So
helpful, Paul. I love you for that.
sometimes, if you don't need my help, just say, Paul, just back out for a little bit. We don't need your help right now. I am so inspired by you. Guys, tonight, if you were watching, we learned a couple of things. Number one, do not rush things. Trust the
Mhm.
process. There's a perfect time for everything, especially when it comes to people. Number two, and very, very powerful, it's okay to look at yourself in the mirror and say, look, I'm actually not okay. Um,
Mm.
and and to admit that is already 50% of the step. Now, the other 50%, there are a lot of things that you can do, but Miss Cass shared with us, and I resonate to this, and I'm going to start finding these people tomorrow. To have people whom you're going to be comfortable with, to be completely open and vulnerable and say, please, I feel like I'm not my 100% today. Can you please just remind me why I'm doing this, why I'm
Yeah.
in this, why I put myself into this?
Yeah.
And then lastly, when you're in that space and you had that motivation or you didn't have, just jump in that next meeting. Just do something, the next step. Just do something small or something big. You don't have to measure it. Just accomplish something. Because at the end of the day, you know what? Things that are not planned might surprise you. You might meet people who's going to inspire you in the next meeting. And maybe that little motivation just by accomplishing something small for the day is going to refuel you and it's going to remind you to why you're doing what you're doing. Um, and again, if you're watching, if you're a startup founder, I know this is startup and wine, it has to be fun, etc. Just have a conversation with yourself. Surround yourself with people that's gonna inspire you, challenge you the healthy way. It's gonna remind you to be consistently responsible, but at the same time, healthy inside and out.
Yeah.
So my name is Paul. I'm your host for Startup and Wine. Miss Cass, can you please help me say Xin Chào Vietnam?
Xin chào Vietnam.
Mabuhay Philippines. Thank you for watching another episode of Startup and Wine. My name is Paul. I'll see you again next Thursday, 8 p.m. Vietnam, 9 p.m. the Philippines. This is Startup and Wine, episode 4.